Hi, I'm Andy from Adaptronic, and in this video I'm going to explain different tuning modes of the select ECUs and how to set them up. Firstly, let's go through the various tuning modes that are available. We categorise them by which sensor on the ECU is actually used to determine the engine load. Other people have got other names for those, and I'll explain what they are as well. The most common tuning mode is just to tune by the map signal, and that's also called speed density. This is the sort of mode that you use in most cases, and it's what we recommend we start unless you have an individual throttle body engine. If you've got a single throttle body and a plenum, then definitely use this mode. We also recommend that you set up volumetric efficiency tuning. This means that you need to enter the injector dead time, the injector flow rate, and the engine capacity. You also have to enable VE for fuel map 1, which is where you'll be doing your tuning, in the default tuning mode, which is 1 equals map, 2 equals unused. Set the maximum map value to the maximum boost that you want to run with a little bit of margin. For example, if you're going to run 20 psi of boost, then set the maximum map at 250 kPa. You can change between the units in the units options menu. You need to also set the RPM step size for the tuning that you want to do. Set the entire fuel map 1 to 80% VE and your ignition map 1 to your starting point for your ignition timing, and then tune the two maps normally. If you have individual throttle bodies on a naturally aspirated engine, for example a 4AGE 20 valve, or such large cams that you can't get enough vacuum at idle to give you enough tuning resolution in the map, then you should try tuning using TPS VE mode. So to do this, select the tuning mode as 1 equals unused, 2 equals TPS, and select VE for fuel map 2. As before, enter the injector size, the engine capacity, and the injector dead time, and the RPM step size. This time ignition map 2 is our ignition map, but it's mapped against throttle position rather than manifold pressure. Fuel map 2 is then a VE map, and the VE will actually change with the throttle position more than you'll see on a map-based map. The reason for this is because of the turbulence that's created by a partly open throttle body. On a single throttle body with a large plenum, the air settles down after the throttle body and gives you a stable map reading, but you don't get that on an individual throttle body engine. Note that when the ECU is in VE mode, the ECU will still compensate for changes in manifold pressure. For example, if you're at 1000 RPM, 0% throttle, 80% VE, if you're at 80 kPa of manifold pressure, you'll get more fuel injected than if you're at 40 kPa manifold pressure. This allows the ECU to compensate for the different fuel required with different idle valve openings. Some people call this tuning mode alpha N. The map, when tuned this way on an individual throttle body engine, will end up looking roughly like this shape, where the fuel decreases as the RPM increases at the same throttle position, and above a certain throttle position at the same RPM, you don't get any more air drawn into the engine, so the fuel map looks fairly flat. If for some reason you don't want to compensate for changes in manifold pressure, then you can't use VE tuning. You'd have to switch off VE tuning and tune the map in milliseconds instead. We don't recommend that you do this, but the option's there for experienced tuners that have determined that this is the best way to tune that particular engine. The final tuning mode that we'll discuss is called map Times Tps Tuning. This gives you separate corrections for throttle position and manifold pressure. It's what you'd use on a forced induction individual throttle body engine, such as a GTR or a GTIR. Some of our competitors call this 4D tuning, but it's obviously not 4D tuning because you don't have a 4-dimensional map. You have two 3-dimensional maps which are multiplied together. The way that you set this up is you select the map times TPS tuning option in the software. Set the injector dead time, the flow rate, the engine capacity, the maximum map, and the RPM step size as before. Select VE on fuel map 2, but not on fuel map 1. Now the way it's calculated is that the calculations performed on each map separately, and the maps are multiplied together for the fuel map, and multiplied together and divided by 10 for the ignition map. The easiest way to think of the calculation is that it's the same as the individual throttle body NA tune, except with the ability to compensate for boost. So set fuel map 1 to 1.000 milliseconds across the entire map, and set fuel map 2 for 80% VE across the entire map. Ignition map 2 is set to 10 across the entire map, and ignition map 1 is your normal ignition map tuned against manifold pressure. 80% VE everywhere is going to be too rich at part throttle on an individual throttle body engine. So this is the sort of shape that you end up on a car like a Nissan GTR. So you do your normal tuning on fuel map 2 against throttle position, and you do that up until the lowest boost that you can create on the engine. You can achieve this by either wiring the wastegate actuator open or just running off the wastegate actuator boost level. But then once you increase the boost, then you can do the corrections on fuel map 1 when you discover that at a certain boost level it needs about 5% extra fuel compared to at the same wide open throttle position at the lower boost level. Hopefully this gives you a rundown of which are the different tuning modes on the ECU and when to use them in different situations. For more information, go to adaptronicecu.com.